we are live. G'day everyone, Mike over here, and you are listening to My Creative Journey, Season 2, Episode number 11. In this week's episode, I am chatting to Jay Dekony. Jay is a wedding videographer and photographer based out of New York in the United States of America. I've been wanting to chat to Jay for quite a long time to, understand what they do with wedding videography. I think it's a crazy world of videography that I don't really truly understand. And in this episode, we dive very deep into how to create a style and how Jay is able to continue that through and able to find clients and be able to build that up over time. We also talk about how Jay started in wedding videography. I think it's a crazy world to get into, especially in New York, in a place like that, a very art capital place that when we think of doing videography there, it's a big, hard market to crack into. And we talk about how Jay was able to make it into that market, but also work in other industries as well, not just doing wedding videos, but working as a videographer more generally. And we talk about how that experience sort of shaped everything that Jay has gone into now. So this episode, I really gained a lot from it. And I think it was, super insightful for me to hear about how someone started. And I think for a lot of people out there, it's a very daunting experience jumping into something as big as, videography and learning how to do it and finding confidence in your own work and your ability to be able to put yourself out there and do it, especially in a place like New York. So I want to say thanks to Jay for hopping on this episode and sharing as openly, as we went through this whole conversation. There was a lot of things that we shared, and I thought that was super insightful and very helpful for you guys as well. And I hope that you're able to get so much out of this episode. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight into this episode with Jay. Hey Mike. Well, hello, Jay. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, all the way from New York. I feel like that's massive to have us both on the same podcast. It's been a long time trying to coordinate a time for us both to be here, but I'm stoked that we're both able to be on the same episode having this conversation today. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
I'm Jay Dekony. I am based out here in New York City, and I am a photographer, videographer, and I guess I focus on a lot of weddings, couples, engagements, proposals, but I also do brands and businesses and all the other stuff that us as camera people get sucked into doing. But I would say the lovey-dovey wedding-y stuff is something that I like. That's my jam.
Love that. And I feel like that's where I first sort of found your stuff on Instagram, being just love when other people really enjoy it so much, are so passionate about it. And I saw your work and I was like, this is really someone who loves what they do and is super passionate. That really comes through. So, I love that we have to do all types of things, as you said, as a creative person, but it's nice to know what it is that you're loving to do and what you're planning to do moving forward.
For sure.
Can you tell me a little bit about, how you started? You're doing photography and videography. I feel like that's I can only do one. Which one kind of came first for you?
So first came videography. I was in 7th grade and I was really into skateboarding. So I figured I'm going to take my laptop, my MacBook, my webcam, and iMovie and just record myself skateboarding in my backyard. And so that's what I did for a little bit and made some YouTube videos. Very embarrassed about them. I'm never going to show you them, but they're out there.
They're out there still.
They're out there still. Yeah. Very embarrassing. My friends and I would make it. I don't know how it transitioned from skateboarding videos onto music videos for Kesha. Do you remember Kesha, blah, 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 from years ago?
Hard to forget that.
Yeah. So my friend and I made a music video to it and it went viral. It's bad, Mike. It's terrible. So that was middle school. And then went to high school and just kind of always dabbled with video making. Nothing too professional. I just used my webcam. And then it was time to go off to college. And my mother, she's an accountant, and she has this thing called a safety blanket that she likes to put over me. And she was like, you should become an accountant because that's a nice, reliable job. Everyone needs an accountant, you'll be good. And that's exactly what I did. I went to college for 3 years for accounting, and it was cool. It was fine. but I just realized I just wasn't happy. This wasn't my passion. I felt like I was just like checking a box. There was no love there. And so I remember sitting down, I was having calamari in like Texas. And I'm like, man, like I'm not happy with where my life is going right now. I know I have a passion for video making and cameras. I'm gonna like dig into that. So I dropped out of school, gave my mom a mini heart attack, and I was like, let me just show you what I can do in 6 months. She's like, okay, fine. So I had no knowledge of like how do you actually use a camera, manual mode, nothing, not about ISO, f-stop, shutter speed. But I knew there was a passion there. So I immediately went onto YouTube and just taught myself everything and um, bought my first camera and started playing. I've always just started playing and always educating myself on YouTube, like the constant hours of just learning, taking information in. And then I realized that, I could probably take photos too. And with the help of YouTube, I taught myself photography and now I use them both sort of hand in hand. I almost forget, I picture them as one. Sometimes I forget that they're two different like entities, but that's how I started video and then which led into photo.
Love that. I love that the like ultimatum to your mum of being like, hand me like 6 months, give me, and let me prove to you that I can do it. How long did it take you?
I believe within like the first 2 months, I was really big into just doing free work, trying to get my name out there. Um, but the ball just started rolling, and honestly, what really helped was just a consistent posting on social media, just letting everyone know that hey, even if it's just posting on your story, like hey, I'm a photographer, and I'm here. So yeah.
There's really so much about like that creative side of people. It's like you have to put yourself out there. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people recognize it as well. Like they're like, that's scary. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to help you in any way I can because I could never put myself out there. And I think that that's, a big thing for a lot of people is like, if you don't tell people this is what you want to do, how can they help or how can they help you with the job they might have? And as you said, you wanted to do free work. Well, if people don't know that's what you're aspiring to do, then, they can't give you those jobs.
Exactly, for sure.
What was it, about that early struggle? I feel like so much of the creative journey is like you get to a breaking point where you're not happy with where you are and then you switch. So many people are told that, they need to go study, they need to get a more stable job. Where was that point for you that you were just like, was there a breaking point in there for you? Were like, you kind of said you were away, but was there something really there, really bubbling inside you?
I was going to school for accounting and bartending, and it didn't help that my manager at the time, while bartending, wasn't the nicest person to me. He wasn't very nice. So I just remember like realizing this is like a pivotal moment in life, and I was like, I have to make a decision. I'm young enough. I can like, I know I have a passion. I know it's there. A lot of people might not know their passion, but I know I pinpointed mine, and I wanted to like full deep dive into that, and just bet on myself, if anything, and yeah. But also doing the work, a lot of people say they're going to do something and then don't do anything to back it up. But it's always, consistent learning, putting myself out there, like doing a podcast with you.
Putting yourself out there. I feel like that really stands like the most creative people are the most passionate about it because they've been on the other side and they're really they just do this out of the love. And that's why we start. And you can always tell the people that have it as a job, but versus the people that really do it out of love. And I think that it really comes across in your work, especially. But hearing how you started, that makes a lot more sense. That doing it from a place of like, I just want to make this work. Like I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can and practice and do all this as much work as I can to see if this is actually a thing I can make a reality.
Right, right. Absolutely, yeah.
Was there a stage like, what was your first job where you were like, I know that I can have this as a career?
It's interesting because after several gigs, I was just doing like little music videos or real estate or whatever. And I met up with his name is Dennis, and he owned a law enforcement training company. And I met up with him. He saw I was green, he saw I was new, but he saw I was eager. And so we had a meeting and we started talking and what clicked, what made us like clicked is Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
Yes, his videos. So that like lit a fire, and he was like, "Hey, like I'd love to present you like a full-time job if you're down, like doing photo, video, and social media, and for X amount." And at that time, I was like, I went home and I'm like, Mom, like I have a consistent little gig here. And with him, I worked for him for 5 years. And that was really nice because they gave me the safety blanket of like having a nice consistency, like salary while also trying to like hone my skills down and learning. So I did that for 5 years and that was super cool. I learned a lot. And after the 5 years, I was able to leave that full-time job and then just kind of go full-time myself, which was super scary, but an amazing thing. I think that was a nice jump. But I really do credit it to just always showing up on Instagram, the power of social media, just letting people know that I'm a creative. I do photo, I do video, so I'm here.
And also a freeing feeling to be able to create from a place of having something more stable as well. In that early stages, I think a lot of people struggle because you can't put yourself out there, you can't change, you can't be creative when you're struggling to like put food on the table. Like if you're not bringing anything in, there's that you're like constantly chasing the next job to make sure you're being able to get paid.
Yeah.
And that stress for a lot of people is what stops them early on. So for you to have that job, I'm sure that was helpful. Also helped out with your parents as well, with your mum like being like, here's my safety blanket. I've got that now.
Yes, it definitely relaxed it. It definitely did. Mike, how did I know this is about me, but I would love to learn a little bit about you. How did you start?
So I went to university as well.
Okay.
I got to the end and been like, yeah, this is not what I want to do. And I didn't drop out. I continued through. But in that last year, I was really like heavy in photography. So I went all in. I was like, I just love this. Like I'd never picked up a camera before. And then I was like, this is so amazing. Like being able to take these images and being able to create this art.
Yeah.
It's like, this is so cool. And then I ended university at the end of 2019. And then I didn't really know what to do. But then early 2020, we got hit by the pandemic. So I kind of didn't have to decide for a while because there was not much happening. So, there was that sort of pressure taken off. After the pandemic, I was like, well, like I feel like during the pandemic, I just went harder, like educating, like online, just learning things, YouTube, learning ins and outs of how to start a business and all that. And then I just like started. I was like, I'm just going to go all in on just starting my own thing. I was like, I don't know how I would ever go working for someone else, so I'm just going to go all into myself. It was a very slow sort of grind to really build up over 2 to 3 years. But then, it was very rewarding at the same time because I was like, everything that I'm doing is for myself.
Yeah.
I did then go get another job. I was in hospitality working on the side as well to sort of sustain it.
Yeah,
because I was like, I need to make things work. And there's that real thing. I said it was like, I can't keep going out and trying to find small jobs that I'm not enjoying. Like I don't want to turn myself off this career early. I think for a lot of people, it's like, if you don't get a good job early on, people are turned off from the whole industry. Like I've spoken to a lot of like wedding photographers that are just starting and they're not really thinking it's for them. And so many people, it's a very polarizing thing, I think, working in the wedding industry for people to be like, it's not for me. Like I've tried it once or twice and it's not for me. And I think unfortunately those first few jobs aren't always the best. The clients might not have the budget for really good quality work. You're not getting paid a lot and you're getting ground to the bone to try to turn things around. They want everything for half the price. Yep. And so I understand why people think it's hard. For sure. It's so crucial in any industry. Like you're working for anyone. If you don't get a good first job, you may be like turned off the whole industry. But it really sounds like for you, especially like you got a really good job under someone. You obviously stayed there for like 5 years. You must have really enjoyed it
It
and
was super
learned a
fun.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
definitely.
much experience did you get through being in that job?
I was the only, creative in that company, and it taught me a ton about audio, visuals, live streaming, even communicating with people. We did like big conferences. We traveled all around America, and it was just super cool to do that. But you've been doing this for 4 years,
Yeah.
Mike. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah.
How long have you been like doing the postings? Because that's how I ran into you. Is the hey Mike, and then he was about to drop some knowledge. I had to stop.
Yeah. I started that last year. So I started that in, I think it was August 2023. So just over a year now.
I love
Um,
that.
I, w- I was uploading to Instagram before that, but not really taking it seriously. Just uploading images for work and like portfolio stuff, a little bits of behind the scenes and bits of that. And I was like, look, I want to try to build something else here. Like, this is obviously not working, this strategy. Like, I need to go more serious. So what do I enjoy? Well, I love educating, and I always wish that, I was very fortunate that I came through at a time when in like 2020, everything was online. So to learn, the online space blew up really because everyone was at home. There's a pandemic. Everyone was forced to learn online. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, let me try to give back to that community and be that person that, I never had that job. And so I'm envious of you because, you worked for someone else in a job for 5 years where you could learn on the job. For me, I was just like thrown in, and there's still a lot that I'm learning to this day about like communicating with people and, working in an organization, working with other clients as well, working with larger clients now as I get them, that I was just like trying to learn as I go. So I'm like, well, maybe I can share something with someone who is just starting. And that's always been my type of content, has been like I kind of created that back and forth between the other person who has all these questions but doesn't really know. And so I'm like, well, let me give that value back to that person, even though it really is just me asking the questions.
Talking to yourself. I love it. I think
Yeah.
it's genius.
I feel like there's always that like imposter syndrome creeps in of like, oh, you're not good enough. But I always was like, look, I can teach someone. There's always someone who doesn't know as much as me. Like, I'm 3 or 4 years in. There's always someone who's just starting, who's just picking up a camera, or who's just wanting to start a business. And if I can help that person, and I think it's been pretty successful, like in that I'm very fortunate to have helped quite a few people, And so
Absolutely.
like, had I not had that mindset when I started of being like, I can help someone, then I probably would still be there thinking that my content's not going to be valuable to anyone. Like, I don't have a perspective to share, where I think everyone does really. Like, it's so interesting. Like, I learned so much from your content, even being like, it's such a unique perspective from where you are in the world. Like, it's so different. Like, you have so much different work in your portfolio that I would never get because of where you are. Like, I just
Right.
want to hear about what you do in your part of the world.
Aw. Well, Mike, if you ever come to New York City, you have a friend here.
Well, definitely now. Yeah, I'll have to come. We make that work. Yeah.
My little brother, he is 13, just picked up a camera, and he's also like going through his journey of learning. Very interesting because yes, he has me as a resource, but he's so independent. He's taking it all himself. But when I told him I would be on the podcast with you, I'm like, I'm going to be talking with hey Mike, and he was like, his eyes lit up. He was like, I know that guy. So you're influencing even the young ones.
Oh, that's nice. It's nice to feel like because I feel like, I never had that. Like, when when I was growing up, I didn't really have that type of stuff online. Like, I felt like I was never a creative, really. Well, I never did photography at school, like when I was in my high school or before that. I think I was, obviously, everyone I think has some type of like creativity in them.
Hmm.
But like, even for you, and like hearing that you had been doing this, like had been making those skate videos for years, like I think those little things they really speak volumes about a person as well, because it's like you've been doing this for so long, and now it's just like, wow. Like, I'm sure for you, you're like, wow, I've turned this into a career now. Like, I never would have thought that was actually a real option that I could have.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. What was like when you first went out on your own to start your own thing? What was it that you went into?
that first month that I went full time myself, um, it was like a no brainer. It was beautiful. My mom, she's an accountant, so she does all the numbers and stuff, and she drives that home. Like, always look at your numbers. Your numbers are that's the lifeline of your business. So honestly, after I quit that, it was just an explosion of just opportunity and more work.
And
And
so it
that,
really sounds like you were like slowly building over that 5 years then
yeah,
to
so I've
have your
been
own
building
thing on the
that.
side. Yeah. Okay. Lovely.
I saw that there was like, I was getting busier on my own stuff as opposed to Street Cops, and that Street Cop, that's the name of the company, and that's when I was like, all right, time to make that change.
Was there like a mark that you were aiming for when you first started? Were you like, I need to equal my income in the other business, or like, if I can do half, if I open up these hours, then I can surely get more?
I don't think there was like a certain number. I think it was just a feeling. And I had a conversation with my boss at the time. His name is Dennis. Him and I are like best friends, really. He's like a father to me. And I went into his office and I was so nervous. I'm like non-confrontational. I'm very like, very quiet. And I was like, Dan, like I feel like I'm not flourishing. I'm in these four walls. I don't feel like it's almost like I was like maybe losing my passion a little bit for that. And he was like, "Oh, dude, like go do your thing." He was so happy for me to take that leap. And I mean, I had a conversation with him yesterday, and we chat on the phone all the time. And he's like, "I'm so proud," and it's beautiful. It's nice. And he also like helped me shape my mind um, early on doing this and into that like if you want something, well, you gotta do it. You gotta it's you versus you. If it's not getting done, like you gotta like put yourself out there. Just do it. So he's always been like a voice in my head, like guiding me through and stuff.
It's really hard, right? To have that voice in your head that really says, well, you've just got to do it, and have that belief. But to have someone in your corner who's helping you back that up is really nice as well. Like, is there like a mentality that you had to sort of change early on? Was there a lot of like, did you come from a place of feeling like you couldn't go out by yourself, and he really helped you do that?
I've always had that like work ethic, full force mentality. My mom, I grew up with a single mom, so I always saw her doing whatever she can to make ends meet. Um, when I met Dennis and we like chatted, it was just more like he showed me what was possible out in the world. Like he was very successful, and I'm like, and I was just like riding his tail, learning whatever I could from him.
It really like sounds like he was a big inspiration for you.
Absolutely, absolutely, and he still is. He still is. He still is.
It's important, I think, because you can't be what you can't see. Like, if you
Hmm.
haven't had those people in your life, how do you know that you can do it? And I think for most of us creatives, like starting your own small business and going out there and doing something yourself is crazy. Like, to most people, it's like, why would you do that? Like, it's so far outside the norm. Like, I didn't have anyone in like my life or my inner circle that had done that. So to feel like you had someone, that must have been super empowering.
Very empowering. It's nice having someone on your court.
Were there other people who you had like looked up to as well?
Yes, of course. Peter McKinnon on YouTube. I always watch his videos. Sam Colder is a big influence of mine. Short Stash on Instagram, YouTube. Those three people like definitely like were big inspos and role models for me.
Yeah, like heavy inspiration for like style, but also like other things as well.
Style and colors and all that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like there's a whole like generation that could probably like thank those three. that's a big three to sort of have there. Like, so many people grew up like watching their stuff or viewing their photos on
Hmm.
Instagram, especially. Like, to have those three, that's not a bad inspiration set to go by.
Yeah, they're pretty solid.
Yeah,
Those are pretty solid
yeah,
creators.
yeah, definitely. Is there like you've obviously gone into like wedding photography engagements and that type of stuff, like those three aren't in that space. Is there someone in that space that you really look up to, or is it your style just grown over the years that it's now your own thing?
the people that I follow aren't like these wedding photographers and videographers. I honestly can't name a lot. Um, but I've also always liked that because it brings like a different lens into the whole space of wedding photography and videography, which I don't want my stuff to look like anybody else's, the cookie cutter stuff. Um, so yeah, I think taking the lens of like my inspiration and kind of like putting it into the wedding industry kind of like keeps it just a different perspective into the world of wedding photo video.
Absolutely. Like if you're just inspired by people who are other people who are like working in your industry, then your work just starts to look the same. I feel like that as well. Like I got asked a few weeks ago in an interview, like, who's your inspiration? Like, who do you look up to? I'm like, really anyone? Like, I don't know if that's bad, but like no one in that space anyway. Like there's no like wedding photographers that I look up to, mostly because I don't consume a lot of their work. Like I don't actually follow a lot of other like wedding photographers on social media. Like I do a lot of like, I do follow a lot of people who create sort of content educators and that type of stuff, but not really like photographers that just post photography, because I find it like I don't want to be inspired directly by other people's work. I do follow a lot of other artists outside of the space. And as you said, like I grew up doing like, I started in doing like landscape photography and doing like that type of stuff. So I was like super inspired by that and creating really bright images and big like wide landscapes. So now that's kind of my style, because I was like, let's just add other people into that. Like that sounds like what you're doing is like fusing styles, and I think that's the best way to stand out. I tell people not to just do what someone else has done, like take things from everywhere and bridge your own style.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Was it like for you, was that a hard sort of transition into doing like wedding photography and engagements? Had you worked with many other like clients in that way before?
Truthfully, I dabbled into that world, into the wedding stuff, but always more like a second shooter. So I didn't have the responsibility of all the admin work, and all the communicating leading up to the wedding day. And then, of course, on the wedding day, you kind of sometimes are orchestrating the entire day. I didn't realize how involved you are, um, in the wedding days. I thought it was more like fly on the wall, documentary style, just like, but no, you have to tell people exactly what to do, where to look, where to go. Depending on the wedding. Some weddings are, they got their stuff figured out and just they're capturing, but um, a good a learning curve that I saw, and I'm always working on it, is how to communicate with the client a day of, make them feel comfortable, but also make them feel like it is their day and I am not orchestrating it too much. I want them to feel like present within the day and not worried about where to put their hands. So I do a lot of like prompts. I get them in motion to move, and then I just capture like the in between moments. So it almost feels like not a photo shoot. It just feels like they're hanging out, and I'm just like, I always tell them I'm always like a stalker in the background, just like taking pictures.
It's a hard style, I think, to develop though. Was that something that you like, did you always sort of go in with that, or did you go with like hard sort of poses and then realize, oh, this is a bit awkward and change it up?
Definitely the posing, and then on YouTube watching other photographers kind of like talk to clients during the photo shoots. I was like, oh, this feels more natural, more like me. I'm not too rigid. I don't like being on top of my clients. I want to capture their day, not me orchestrate the day for them. So I figured that working off some prompts like relaxes them and just kind of gets everyone loose. And it's fun that way. It's, people like games.
I think that that's like to keep people like moving. Like as soon as they get stagnant, it's very hard when they get stiff, and then it becomes awkward. So if you can keep people moving, I think that that's
For
always,
sure.
a nice way, especially when you're doing like video as well. Like that would come through. Like you can't just stand people still.
Yeah. Yep. Very, yeah, yep, definitely.
Is it a really like different approach when you go to photo versus doing video?
No, I wouldn't say when I'm like posing. I always try to like when I do photography, I always try to have movement in my photographs. So when I do the same thing for video, it's nice having that movement, but um I guess when I'm working with when I'm doing video for the wedding and I'm working with another photographer hired outside my team, um, there always needs to have like be like a conversation, like you get your shots, but then I'm gonna add a little bit of movement, and even if it's just like like look away and then also you look at me, boom, like that in slow motion is epic.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to have that sort of, we're both working for the same team here. Like we're going to get what we get. Like when I'm working with a videographer, I'm always like changing up my style slightly to make sure that people are constantly like moving, because
Hmm.
that always looks better in video. And we don't want to do things twice. Like you don't
Right.
want to drag people, into two different positions to do two different things, one for the photographer, one for the videographer. So like trying to keep it as like moving as possible, I think is important for when you're doing the video.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for saying that. I'm sure videographers by you are stoked that you do that.
Probably. But I think it's important because a lot of photographers are like scared to work with other like videographers. And I think like no one's more important. Like just because you're the photographer doesn't mean you're more important than the videographer. Like I'm sure they've hired both of you for maybe completely different styles, but they both like your work. So you're both working for the same outcome here. Like we're not asking you to completely change, but like try to do things for the client as well. Like I think at the end of the day, if you're making them do something twice, then it's going to annoy them pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think I'm learning that having that conversation with the photographer prior to the wedding day also like clears up a lot of confusion, and you just work better day of, that we have like a better flow and stuff. That is something I learned last week, actually. So I was like, you know what, next time I'm gonna set it up where me and the photographer maybe have a chat by ourselves prior to the wedding day. I used to just do it wedding day, but wedding day everyone's just so caught up in everything. But I think just having like a clear plan on like, okay, are you using flash? At what points? Like, how can we, just having a conversation about it. It also like breaks the barrier and stuff too.
Yeah, there's always a bit of that awkwardness when they first walk through the door on the like the wedding day, or whoever's been there first, and like,
Right?
yeah, I definitely did that when I first started, of being like not communicating with the, if they had like a videographer, not communicating with them before the day, and then you turn up and be like, where do you stand during the ceremony? Please don't get in my way. Like, how do you have that conversation half hour before the ceremony? I don't,
I know, right?
it never works. So yeah, I think good thing that you actually learned that last week.
See, always learning, always learning.
Yeah, that's it. Always like, I still like to take little bits from the way other people do them. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm a bit too standoffish on a day. Maybe I need to be more confrontational. Like, I very much have that style of like, let things happen. I don't want to over direct or over pose, but sometimes it's important to really put yourself out there and say, no, we need this photo. Like you need to do this to really assert yourself to get your style. Because I think it is that bit of a juxtaposition between what the client expects from you because they've booked you for your style versus just sort of documenting the day. How do you balance that when it's like, when people are booking you for your style, are you going in with things with like different types of shots you need to get to execute on that to make the client happy?
Truthfully, I'll have prior to a shoot, I'll have maybe shots I want to get. I'll go on Instagram, um, set up maybe like a little bit of a mood board. Maybe not so much copy the exact posing or style, but maybe the feeling that the photo gets. So I'll use that, but a lot of the times, like I when I meet the clients and we start shooting, I go off their vibe. If they have a natural like chemistry, it just flows beautifully, and I let them do their thing. Some clients, they get rigid, and I have to, be more hands-on at that moment. Maybe talk to them a little bit more, ask them how they met, and it's beautiful because when you ask a couple, "How did you meet?" It's that smile that they get on their faces, and they get all like they're excited to tell the story, and that's super sweet. And it's also super sweet seeing the other person listen on the the other person tell the story. It's wonderful, like seeing their walls drop. But it's really just going off their vibes, and I'm huge on that vibe.
What about like your style telling a story through a video? That's one of the main things that I'm like, so bewildered by how videographers do it, how they pull a story together when they're creating a video. Like for me, that's not something I ever think about. Like each sort of photo stands alone. Like I try to make it a hero image. Like when I'm taking a photo, it's like I'm trying to create separate different hero images. Of course, when you're presenting like a gallery, they all sort of blend together, but the ultimate aim is for them to get hung on the wall, right? And they're mostly going to stand alone or with a couple of photos by the side. When you're putting together a video, there's a lot of story that's got to run through that. Like what's your process there? I'm sure that there's like so many different things we could go down, but like, are you planning that before the day, or does the story come after you've sort of met the couple on the day and you go with the story of the day?
I would say it would come in day of or in the editing process. I like building the story. So, is there anything that was said during like any sweet moments during the first look, or reading letters, or anything said during the ceremony, like nice sound bites? Speeches are beautiful to make a story out of. So it's just always finding the story within what was said, and then kind of like putting everything together, and then some B-roll on top, some nice music, and now you have a nice little film, nice little tearjerker. Um,
That's always the aim, probably.
yes, yeah, definitely. I'm trying to make you cry.
And I'm sure that would require like having a lot of like B-roll as well. Like, do you have to feel like you overshoot things? Like, how much of the stuff doesn't make the final cut?
A lot, a lot. I'm always looking for those golden moments. I feel like I'm a little bit too picky sometimes. When someone's watching a video, I want them to be like sucked in. I don't want any like if a camera's panning in slowly, I want that to keep going. If it's, left to right, I want that to like flow very nicely. I don't when my shots kind of like, when the viewer is looking at a video and something happens that disrupts like their flow of the video, I'm not too big on that. So I always try to like keep it. I'm just trying to keep it just flowing, keep your emotions flowing. I also like playing with your emotions throughout the video. So I'll go like sad, build up, not sad, but like low, and then the emotion for a climax, and then drop, and then maybe I hit you with another climax like right before the end. And I just really am. I have a touch on the emotion throughout the entire video, and at the end, I hope I make you cry.
I feel like so many people are able to do it, but in very different styles. Like I'm always amazed by different types of like wedding videos that I see, or any type of sort of like video out there where it's like they take you through that high and low throughout the story. Like where did you learn about being able to do that?
I think I just came from looking at other videos, the ones that like made my like heart kind of beat a little bit faster. Like I kept on to that feeling. Um, and I'm still learning that as I edit, is how to hit the emotions throughout the video. Yeah.
I'm sure that you're someone that looks back at, older work and thinks how you could have improved it. Like, I think that that's a hard feeling that you've got to move on and just let go of the edit. I'm sure that, you can
For
tweak
sure.
things forever.
Yeah, I know, right? And then even like I'm sure you feel the same way too. You open up a project you were editing the night before and all the colors look whacked. It looks so silly, and you're like, that's too green or that's too cyan. I used to start my videos off with like a establishing shot of the getting ready, a drone shot, typical. But now, because I'm really trying to mess with like the emotions throughout the video, I am playing with the idea of starting the video off with like establishing the scenery. So right now I'm working on a New York City wedding that I did, and it was iconic, some iconic locations: St. Patrick's Cathedral and the Rainbow Room, which super cool venues. But um, in the beginning of the video, I'm really focusing on like, what does New York City look like, sound like, feel like. So I have like a little like montage of like what makes New York City New York City, the taxi cabs, the smoke pillars, the trains, like all that. Um, and then it kind of like into like the slowness of like a wedding film. I like doing like a nice little like maybe recap or just something to set the mood of the video and then into the video.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really nice, way to sort of set the scene. Like you're like creating that emotion. Like to really tell a story, you've got to set the scene, right? And
I watched do you know Runaway Vows on Instagram?
yeah.
They just released a video. It starts off with an incredible drone shot of I don't know where, but they're in the mountains, and it just sets up the whole video so beautifully. It was 10 out of 10.
It's nice when you see like other people's work and you're like, wow, like that's I could only dream of being there and being able to do that. Is there like a dream location that you'd love to work in?
You know, have you heard of the Salt Flats in Utah?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, there would be
Mm.
kind of cool.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
It would be cool. Honestly, anywhere. Give me an open field, I'm in.
Are you like? Do you mostly work like right in New York City?
Most of my work is in New York, but um I have traveled to like uh I went to Mykonos for an engagement shoot and I try to do like styled shoots in places I don't usually frequent. Like I did one in Arizona and Utah, which is super cool. Maybe one day I'll go to Australia.
Maybe. Well, you can always come down here.
There you go.
Plenty of open space here.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Like I feel like that's like the creativity that comes out of like New York, so different, I'm sure, to being like in Arizona or Utah. Like the artists that I see come from different places, have such different styles. Like, what is it for you about like New York that has been a big influence on your style? Do you see it come through in your work?
I'm not sure, but I hope so. I feel like New York is very like it's a lot to be around. Like you can have like sensory overload just like standing at a corner. And I'm the type of person that like I'm an introvert. I kind of like keep to myself. I'm an observer. So to be in that environment with and just like noticing things, I think that kind of like gives like a nice little perspective on my lens and what I want to capture, what I see amongst the chaos of New York City.
It's also hard to feel like, how do you tell the story of this place that hasn't been told before? Like, I'm sure there are so many people, so many photographers, videographers working in that space. It's a very like artsy space too. It's very like forward in the trends in the genre. Like, how do you feel? How do you stand out in a market like that?
Yeah, I try not to like put too much pressure on myself. I like the freeing idea of just putting myself somewhere and just like, what do you see? What do you notice? Go.
And so, what was it about you then that was like, I'm going to jump onto Instagram and start uploading content? Like, I feel like that's heavy pressure then to do that. Like, what was the thing that was like, I'm an introvert. I'm going to go put myself in front of everyone in the world.
When I had dropped out of my full-time job, I was on Instagram, but just kind of just posting my work, not so much myself. But I realized I saw the power of social media and Instagram, and I realized that I had to like put myself out there. When I had filmed Dennis at my old job, my job was basically to be his D-Rock. If you know Gary Vaynerchuk, D-Rock is the guy who follows him around. So I kind of did what I did with Dennis. Now it was time to take what I did with Dennis and just do it with me now. So it's educating. It's putting myself out on the speaking to the camera, which it's scary, and I dread those days, but I know I have to do those days. Yeah, Instagram. It's wild the power that it has. Most of my work comes through Instagram.
I really feel like for a lot of people, like I get asked a lot, how do you put yourself out there? I feel like I'm an introverted person as well. Like, but I feel like the online space, I think something people don't realize is that you have a lot of control over what it is that you put out there in the world. Like you can record a video, you don't have to upload it. Like, so you have a lot of control over how you present yourself and what the story is that you want told, as opposed to, you know, other people documenting you for you. Like you have final say over what it is that you put out in the world. Like when I walk out the front door, I don't necessarily like, you know, I'm having a conversation with someone, I might feel really awkward on that day, but you know, online you can paint that picture of yourself. And I think in a way, the truest version of yourself does come through, because I don't know about you, but like feeling like I have to be someone when I go out the door is hard. Online, I'm like, I can just be me. Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you found that that's really helped you online in attracting your clients too? Like I'm sure that just being
Yeah.
yourself in front of
Yeah,
camera has helped them know who you are. So it sort of breaks that barrier down.
definitely. And a lot of my videos, I will like lean into like my awkwardness and the weird stuff. So, and I find people saying like, I like how authentic you are and how open you are about all this. And I guess it's more relatable. And, you know, I thought you had to like do these videos and make them perfect. But once I started doing some more blooper reels and just kind of showcasing like the real side of things, like people kind of relate to that more. And I hope to continue to do that and keep opening up in that way.
Was that scary when you first like opened up, like were a bit like vulnerable online?
Yeah, definitely. It is scary, of course. When I do record these videos, I have Kyle who works with me. He does a lot of the editing. So even even like recording these videos and then seeing that, knowing that somebody else is going to watch it, see all the raw stuff, that was also scary too. That was also another hurdle to get over. But it's been a year since him and I have been working together, and you know now I'm just like, Kyle, just do what you will. You see the real me.
Yeah, he gets to see you in real life too. I'm sure like he'd know what you're like. So that's a nice connection to have. Who is like Carl to you? Well, what does he do for you?
Because I saw the power of Instagram, the power of social media, I realized that I have to like hone in on that. And um, you know, I'm doing client work, and I also realized that social media is like very big in my business. So I needed help in continuing to make that social media content so I can continue on client work. So Kyle came in, and what he does is he will occasionally come to shoots with me, record the behind the scenes, and then he'll edit everything and make like social media videos. Like the reels that you see on my Instagram, they're probably made by Kyle. Um, and he's awesome. Or if he doesn't come with me to the shoot, I have a 360 camera I attach on top of my camera, and so he'll take that footage and make something for social with that. Kyle is awesome. He's great. And I also have Addie, who is we're like yin and yang. If I'm the quiet, don't know how to talk girl, she'd be very proud I'm doing this with you right now. She is the the admin type A, organized. She is amazing. She does all the inquiries, all the scheduling, planning, client relation. She's just a pleasure to talk to. And with Kyle and Addie, I'm very lucky to have them.
That's incredible to get to that stage. How was that feeling when you first brought them on?
When I first came in was Addie, and the orchestrator behind that would be my mother. And she met Addie, and she was like, Addie's awesome. Like, we got to bring her in on this. And it was at a time when I had just quit my full-time job. And my mother was like, you know, just have Addie take care of all the inquiries. And that was a little scary to let go of. But also, you know, speaking to Addie, I'm like, you're just such a great communicator, and I'm not. Please, I trust you with my clients. And she is way better than me. I wouldn't like I can't communicate like her. She's a great asset. And then um, I got bogged down with a lot of the client work. So then I realized I needed someone to help me out with the social media stuff, and that's when Kyle came on. and he's a gem as well. They're both, I'm so lucky to have them, for real.
That's so nice that you've really been able to find good people as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
Yeah.
They're really nice.
For anyone out there like thinking about whether they should, outsource or hire someone or bring someone in, has it been a good thing?
Absolutely. There's a saying, and of course, I'm going to botch the saying, but if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go by yourself or something. And if you want to go far, go with the team. 100%. I'm only one. I find what my weaknesses are, and then try to like find people to help me out in that. Yeah, I mean, to build a sustainability question mark. I think that's the right word. Spanish is my first language. To build that and just not go absolutely crazy, I think having a team is key in growing and continuing on.
Absolutely. I feel like finding a team, but also finding other creative people that you can, talk to and have connection with is so important for us. Like we work alone, like building off other people. We don't go into an office every day and work with a big team. Like finding other people is lovely. Like when you can and bounce ideas, I'm sure that, it's great to have them around.
Yeah. Find your creative tribe too, like having other, and I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation today because I have a new friend. It's awesome meeting other creatives, and, I'm going to support your wins as well,
Lovely. I'm definitely keen to, get a few more people over your way, because that would be, nice for people to be able to support your work as well, because I think what you're doing is incredible. Your work is amazing, and just the power of being able to meet people online. I think it's one of the best parts of online. There's a lot of like negativity in the space, but I feel like meeting people and building connection, being inspired by other people is the real positive. So we have to really lean into that and use it to our advantage, I think.
For sure. Mike, do you see the sun coming out right now?
Yeah, it's starting to get brighter. I really appreciate you. What time is it over there for the folks? Please tell people.
It is 7:32 a.m. We started this podcast at 6:30, and waking up with Mike.
So much commitment. It's like nearly like 9:30 here in the evening.
Wow.
So it's getting pretty late. Opposite ends of the world. It's been crazy to be able to talk to you today, Jay. Thank you so much for hopping on. What are you doing moving forward? Where can people find what it is you're working on?
You can find me on Instagram at Dekony, JAYDEKONY. And projects I'm working on are probably another wedding video right now. And I just finished a super cool documentary, which is something that I really don't do. It's something out of my realm. And this documentary is about Uncle Louis, who is 100 years old. He's not my uncle. He's everyone's uncle. I had a chance to hang out with him for 2 days. And this man, wow, he lives by himself, cooks by himself. He still drives. He still goes out shopping. He's got his friends. And I was able to sit down with him and have a very long conversation about his life. He was a machine gunner on D-Day on Omaha Beach, veteran, just an amazing life. And so I just released that video. It's on YouTube and also on my Instagram. It's a great watch. He's an amazing human. We need more Uncle Louis. So if you want to laugh or smile and just learn about someone who's got an amazing life experience, check out Uncle Louis' video.
I must say, I did watch that the other day.
You did?
Amazing video. You really should do more of them. I didn't know that was your first one. Like, you should definitely do more because, that's the real power of storytelling. Like, being able to preserve that, so special, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely very special. Very lucky to have hung out with him, and to many more hangouts with Uncle Louis.
Yeah, absolutely. And many more hangouts with us as well. I'll definitely get over there. We'll definitely come. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you so much for hopping on with me today, Jay. It's been an amazing episode, and to be able to hear your story as well. Like, I think a lot of people will gain a lot from what you've done in such a short period of time. Like, you're really smashing it out there in the world, and lovely to see it, especially over there in New York, like massive market, and you're like absolutely killing it. So it's really good to hear from you.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate you having me on.
No worries at all. Well, that is the end of today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation half as much as I enjoyed having it. If you did enjoy today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you did leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Or if you're watching over on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment down below to let us know that you did enjoy this episode. Also, feel free to share this episode on Instagram and tag me at Mike Jeffrey Photography so I can reshare them on my stories. And also message me and let me know who you would love to hear on an upcoming episode of this podcast. You know, I've always tried my best to be able to have conversations with people who are in the creative space and people that I think would be a good fit on this podcast. And I would love your input as well. In a very privileged position at the moment where, you know, I'm able to reach out to people and have them on my podcast and have really interesting conversations with a whole range of people in the creative space and talk about their creative journey. So if there is anyone you would love to hear from, please let me know and I will do my best to try to get them on the podcast. At this time, I would also like to acknowledge the first creatives of the land on which I am recording today, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of so-called Australia. As we tell stories of today, I just want to reflect on how First Nations people here and across the globe have guided and informed our understanding of the creative journey. But until next week, friends, have a lovely week and I will speak to you all again next Monday. Bye. Editing and post-production on this episode was done by Mossy Media, and music was created by JWPATON.